Hello and welcome to the Womb Centered Healing Podcast. I'm Sama Morningstar and I have Shelly and Bree with me here today. Welcome. I met Shelly, at least Shelly, I didn't meet Bree yet, but she said that we would be coming along in a podcast guest Facebook group. And
Yes.
she was saying, Shelly was saying that her and her daughter love to come on people's podcasts and talk about the mother-daughter relationship. And I said, well, that would be perfect for the Womb Centered Healing podcast. And I'm really delighted after hearing more about what you love to talk about. There's so many avenues that this conversation can meander down. I'm really looking forward to this. So, Shelley and Bree, would you please introduce yourselves and share a little bit about um, your womb-centered healing journey? And we talked about before how this mother-daughter relationship topic is really central to that womb-centered healing journey. So please do introduce yourselves and share about that.
Well, my name is Shelly Meche'tte, and initially I am a certified life purpose coach, and I am a self-awareness expert. I'm also an author and a speaker. And so together with my daughter, what I really enjoy is that we've come together and we are taking entertainment by storm. Does that sound good?
Okay. Sure.
So we're actually we host red carpet events together, or I should say we did before
Pre-COVID.
yes, pre-COVID. So
Uh-huh.
we hosted red carpet events together, we hosted celebrity events together, things of that nature. And so I am learning about the what is it, womb centered healing.
Yes.
So I'm actually learning about that from you today, Miss Sama. And so the journey that we have been on really is being able to transition our relationship. Yes, we do all of these things today because I believe that I can truly say we've come into a level of friendship. Instead of just the mother-daughter relationship, I think we've been able to come to kind of a full circle of being able to see one another as people, see one another as women, and not just keep each other in a box. And I think that that's central to what we were speaking about earlier about that womb centered healing. And in order for you to be able to have that and to be able to have that type of a relationship, you you have to be able to see one another beyond just the boxes that we check off. So that's pretty much our journey and what it is that we enjoy being able to do. The mother-daughter relationship can be extremely tensed.
Mhm.
It can be there can be a battle. You know, you have these two women, one growing into herself, one who is an adult, one who's trying to become an adult, one who's trying to protect you from bumping your head as you become an adult. And there's a lot of tension
Mm.
in that growing process. But I believe that during that, we have come to a point again where we've leveled some of those things out and we can actually look at one another as friends. I think I did I wrap.
Yeah. I mean, as always, there's really nothing left for me. I don't like repeating stuff, so it'd be nothing for me to follow up with. But hello, I am Bree, the daughter of Miss Shelley here. I am a ASL. Really,
Excuse
gonna
me.
cough
Well,
when it's
I
my
had a
turn.
little something,
But you
something.
didn't have it when it was
Well,
your
but it
turn
was
to
a
talk.
tickle. I had a
Okay.
tickle.
I see what you did there. So
This is what I deal
no.
with. This is
Mhm.
what I
I don't
deal
know.
with.
Just all of a sudden, you wanted to cough when it was my turn to talk.
Some I had a
Like,
tickle. I had a little
got
you
it.
tickle.
didn't have no tickle when it was your turn. That's all I'm
I
saying.
have another tickle.
You see now how all of a sudden the tickles are just coming. Okay.
Oh, the two of you are
Okay.
real fun. Oh my goodness.
I'm an American Sign Language interpreter and
Mhm.
a deaf culture merger, which is just someone who spends a lot of time in the hearing community, educating about the deaf community and deaf culture, bringing awareness to sign language in hopes to increase the numbers of hearing people learning sign language so that deaf people can have access to the everyday world that they also contribute to.
Take a breath. That was good. You're like,
I mean, because it all it's one long sentence with a
yeah,
couple of
was
commas.
it was long.
But okay,
That
well,
was good though.
well, look,
That
pat
was
myself on
good.
the back.
Yeah. I had to take a breath.
No, but I still had breath. So,
Okay.
I was,
It was a long sentence.
thank you.
Well, it was inspiring, Bree. I'm telling you, I'm sitting over here having images of having you be on the podcast interpreting what it's saying on my YouTube channel.
She's great at what she does. Unbiased opinion.
I mean, I have I still have a long ladder to climb up.
Mhm.
You'll have people thinking that I can just interpret
She's
anything.
great at what she
I
does.
look interpreting it. Well, let me just sidebar real quick. Interpreting is a really tough skill. A lot of people think that just because you're fluent in American Sign Language, that means that you're qualified to interpret. Absolutely not. And when you interpret, you use a whole nother completely different side of your brain, and your brain has to be doing this in like seconds. And especially like when you're dealing with a language that doesn't have the same concepts. So in this amount of time, you have to find those concepts to match to make sure that that message is clear. And that is such a tough skill. And that's a skill that you have to practice at, especially with ASL, when we do this thing called concept on the hands, English on the mouth. So a lot of like upper level deaf people who have like PhDs, you'll sign the concept of what it means, but actually mouthing the English words, and that crap is hard. That is really
Oh my
hard.
So
goodness.
now she decided to give us all a lesson
I know. I just
in
wanted to put
ASL
that
because
out
she
there.
wanted us to see how fabulous she is and how
No,
hard she worked.
no. The point was just to see how
You
much of
see,
a
she
ladder that
just
I have to
she's all
climb.
because I coughed earlier. She wanted to make sure
Oh
that
my
it was
goodness.
known how difficult the skill
Yeah,
is.
because people don't give interpreters the
I
respect
just
that they.
gave it to
No,
you.
not you. I just wanted,
I'm
Thomas
just
listeners to,
Oh my goodness.
just think about that for a second.
oh
No, but yeah, but I definitely enjoy what I do. We write scripts together.
yes.
We produce the web series together. Um, yeah, you already mentioned the red carpet and all that other stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Um, yeah,
Beautiful.
I think that's pretty much it. And
Hmm.
you already said the rest of the stuff about our relationship, so I won't repeat
Okay,
that.
okay. I got that in. I got that in.
And you're demonstrating this, some of the things that you were talking about too, of this process of playing with and enjoying your relationship with each other, that also includes this tension of, um, that can be so common and so understandable in the mother-daughter relationship, that is tickles me to witness it, and feel that same thing that goes on between my mother and I, and my mother and her mother, and other mothers and daughters, and that sort of tension that you're demonstrating in such a jovial and humorous way, is so endearing, and I think will help listeners to connect with their own mother-daughter relationship, and all relationships in their lives that are so intimate, and yet there can be this rubbing up against each other, and making light of it and having fun with it, seems like one of the tools that you probably demonstrate very often to people that you support on that journey.
Well, one of the things that we like for people to know is that everything here is natural.
Hmm.
So there's nothing that you get that's pre-rehearsed, or let's do this, let's do that. This is years worth of building,
Hmm.
and I think that sometimes a lot of times parents miss that. They sit down with us, or they look at us, and it's like, oh, how can I get what you guys have? I want that kind of relationship with my daughter. I want to be able to have fun with my daughter, to play with my daughter, this. And I think sometimes what we miss as parents is we got this because of what happened 20 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
This was a work in progress. I went through the teenager years just like everybody else. we
Oh
went we
man.
went through the we've gone through all of those things. So none of this of what you see has happened. The smooth trail that you see only was possible from the rocks,
Mm-hmm.
from the tough times,
Mhm.
from the respect that's built, from the discipline that's laid out, from the example that you try to set as a parent. We're not perfect as parents, but I think one of the things that we should really be careful about is the physical example that we set. I truly believe that children watch us more than they listen to us.
Mhm.
Did you listen?
No.
Clear. I didn't hear much of a hesitation on that
She
answer.
didn't have right. No.
Yeah, no, but I mean,
He tried to look and see maybe
yeah,
there
because
was
I
a
had to
time when
think
she.
about it. I'm like, yeah, there's no justification.
No,
Like, no, I didn't
you
listen,
see?
but I did start listening when I started going to college. Because
That's see how long that took when she went to college.
yeah,
What was that
but the
about?
thing is the mindset. Well, for one, let me tell you, my mother made it very clear that me turning 18 meant absolutely nothing.
Nothing.
So there's no need in me waking up and starting to feel myself
Please
and
don't.
being like, oh, I'm grown and this and that, and thinking that I could just do whatever in the house and be disrespectful because I'll come home and the locks will be changed. So knowing that I didn't have nowhere to go if I was disrespectful, that really made it very easy for me to humble myself as I was transitioning into adulthood. So I think the fact that also it was an intentional transition that you set up also, like let's let me teach you how to do X, Y, and Z
Mm-hmm.
financially.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
You don't have to get a job while you're at school, but if you just want like some chump change
Mm-hmm.
to, get some snacks or basic necessities, let's work this out and see if you can do blah, blah, blah. If it's too much with all the units, don't worry about it,
Mm-hmm.
but so every transition from freshman year, sophomore year,
Mm-hmm.
junior year, it
So
was
just
it was
giving
intentional,
a little
yeah,
bit
of
of
how
peace.
to guide me
Mm-hmm.
through that, which I think also is what helped, like you said, years, even though that wasn't years, I mean, it was
Well, college
kind of,
wasn't years ago, but you've been out
I've been
for
out
a
for a
minute,
while.
for
I
like 4 years, right?
5,
Oh wow, you're old. Have mercy.
maybe. Wait, when did I graduate? Well,
Well, when
I entered college in
that was, yeah, but you
2012.
graduated in 2016, so
16.
that's
Okay.
almost 5 years ago. That's
Whew,
yeah.
time
That
just,
time be moving,
yeah.
but yeah,
But
and well,
yeah,
actually,
yeah.
that's really I thank her for even saying that because as a parent, we need to hear some of the things that we did right. What did we do right? It's so easy for our kids to tell us everything that we didn't get right.
But also, I was very self-aware about myself. I knew that I needed rules. I knew
Yes,
that I
that's what you
knew
said.
I knew that without rules, that I would just like I don't even, I would self-destruct because too much freedom at once. I couldn't handle it, and so it was very important for me to make sure that I was listening to that sound advice. And then, like you said earlier, Sama, like my mother ended up becoming my mentor like during those years. And even to this day, I don't make financial decisions without running it past by her. People be trying to, these credit card people be trying to get me. I'll be like, no, I think we're frozen. Are we
No.
frozen?
Oh,
Oh,
No, I think
oh,
we
okay.
there.
I mean, these credits, they be trying to get me, and I'll be like, no. I'm like, I need to talk to my mother, aka my financial advisor, first, so I can see if this is even a wise
She
move.
makes me laugh every
I
time she says that. Oh, I
I
need to
showed you.
talk to
I'm
my
like,
financial advisor first.
no, and so I think
Yeah.
that because I was very self-aware, that it also made it easy for me to be receptive of the advice and guidance from my mother during that time, because I knew I didn't know everything. And I didn't even try to act like I knew everything. I knew I was a dummy. I knew I was a dumb 18-year-old, just like everybody else. And I was not that 18-year-old that thought that they knew everything. No, I knew I was dumb and needed some help. So that made it very easy, like for me to be receptive. So to have this kind of relationship, like it really takes a two-way street. It takes the mother, like you said earlier, being able to gain a different perspective of the child, but it also takes work on the child to be able to humble themselves and be able to receive and not be like, well, that was your time then, this is my time and let me do me. Our parents really do know what they're talking about. Sure, like each world looks different, but the principle remains the same, bottom line.
yeah.
So
Yeah.
And there's so much
Yeah.
wisdom that our parents can pass along to us.
Right.
within the scope of a human being that might
Right.
not going to have all the wisdom in the world, and a child might develop a new kind of wisdom out of the
They
place,
definitely are going to
Yeah.
develop a new
right?
kind of wisdom. Yes.
Out of the places where the mother, or the parents, or the adults in their lives had shortcomings, perhaps, or hadn't developed that wisdom, then that becomes a stepping
Exactly.
stone and a motivation to then develop that wisdom for themselves and fill in the gaps, and come back with more wholeness, and have
Hmm.
that gift to give to the family. um
Yeah.
I was
But you're absolutely right. There's some wisdom, and I think as parents, we need to be able to not be offended by that, that there's some things that our children are going to pick up and learn because the times are different.
Mhm.
There's going to be some things that they pick up and learn, and we're just not going to have the answers to that. We may not even have the understanding to that. And we need to be open enough to say, you know what? Hey, Bree, I don't get that. Help me understand that, or what's going on with that. I say to
I
people
mean, that
all the
happened
time,
today
what was
when
I?
we were with texting, and because
Oh
yeah,
yeah, I
that
just
happened today. Yeah, where
okay.
we had
Let
that
let
conversation.
me just tell you, Miss Salma. Okay, here's the thing. Okay, I come from the background that you don't, communicate with people over the phone before a certain hour. So if you call people or text people, at 6 and 7 in the morning, the way I was raised, that's inconsiderate
Mhm.
and that's rude.
Mhm.
And you don't go around texting people, at 6 o'clock in the morning. Even if you are up, you wait for a decent hour so that you're not disturbing their home. And so she's like, no, that's not really what it is. It's not disrespectful. It's not this, it's not that. And so, and I'm going, no, I think you're wrong. That's not how you do things. And she's like, no, this is probably how you're looking at it, but she's like, right now where we are, what texting means to this generation and how we communicate, there's absolutely nothing disrespectful. It doesn't matter. You wake up, you text somebody anytime you feel like it. When I respond is when I respond. And I'm just like,
And then of course, but I was also explaining that texting wasn't a big thing when you were growing up, and
right,
even when you were like a younger adult, that
right.
wasn't a big
We
it
had the
wasn't what
cell phones, but it wasn't
yeah, but it
us
wasn't what it is
texting what it
now.
right.
So of course, like, it was being embedded that you don't disturb someone's house. You got the ringer going off at 6 in the morning, but this is somebody's personal cell phone. If it vibrate, they gonna press decline and roll over back to sleep. Like,
See,
it don't,
so for me, I'm just like, you just don't do that. That's not what you do. You just wait to a decent time. So it's interesting again because it doesn't matter what I say, that's not going to change, her perspective of that. That is how they run things, how you do things. And no matter what she says, I'm not going to see things in that way. I still would never text anyone, at
Mhm.
6 o'clock in the morning
But at least
because
we understand the mindset behind it.
exactly.
Hmm.
So her being able to give me a different perspective of the mindset, we as parents, we have to be open enough to say, okay, it's a different mindset. It's a different, it's this type of a change. Yes, what seems to have been disrespectful in my era may not be that. But let me understand the mind, that we're going into. And that's part of us building that back and forth respect of, I don't have to agree with you, but I see what you're saying and I can take that and still do things my way,
Hmm.
But I bet that it also helps you when Bree texts you at 6 a.m. to not be so offended or upset.
Bree doesn't text me at 6
Oh,
a.m.
I see. It helped her to adjust her habits in order to respect your
Yeah,
feelings and your
Bree
I was
Bree
telling my
doesn't
mom a
text me.
story about one of my friends, and I was like, yeah, and they texted me at like 6:30 in the morning to tell me blah blah blah. And so
Oh,
why
I
are they
see.
texting you at
I
Yeah.
yeah?
see. You
Mhm.
already
So I'm
worked that
sleeping.
part out.
I'm not texting anyone because I'm asleep. And
I
if
see.
people are texting me again, I'm not responding until like 9 o'clock because
Uh-huh.
my phone is on do not disturb because I will not be disturbed
So there
while
you
I'm
go.
sleeping. So
That's the nice thing about that's the thing about cell phones. There's all these functions like airplane mode and do not disturb.
Which is
That
what she's
why do
explaining.
you
right.
do the same movement
No,
I
why did you do
did?
the same
You
movement
we
that
got the
I
same.
did?
I just want to be like me so bad. Oh my goodness.
Oh gosh, this is what I deal with every day.
Okay, so I want to bring this conversation into the even more into the realm of womb-centered healing, but and within this topic of the mother becoming the mentor of the daughter as she's coming into her own maturity. And I'd love to hear your stories, if you're willing to share, about how you mentored Bree, and Bree, how you received that mentoring around your coming of age as a woman and starting your menstrual cycle, and coming of age as a woman and perhaps starting to explore sexual activity. These are big womb centered healing topics that often the neglect of that coming of age time and the lack of mentoring and support and information and full initiation in those times can be detrimentally impactful for the rest of our lives. And I am still recovering from the fact that my mother received no mentoring about her menstrual cycle. It was a big dark secret. She thought she was going to die when she first started bleeding at 10 years old.
Wow, yeah, young.
And then at 17, she still didn't understand how babies were made and what actually goes on, and had a boyfriend for a couple of years, and then figured out on her own that something was amiss and that it was me. And so
Like,
I was the miss.
welcome.
I was the miss that was there. And that, I mean, without going into all the details of the story, as you can imagine, as a 17-year-old with, an irresponsible boyfriend who, that's how young men are typically not taught how to be responsible in that way either. And all the responsibility is laid onto the young women if that kind of thing goes on. And so back in 1970, which is the year that that was going on when I was being conceived, within a Catholic family, that there was a lot of suffering that happened around that, which influenced my gestation, my conception, my gestation, and my birth, and my entire childhood. And I'm still recovering from the effects of that now in my life. And so the kind of hush hush, we don't talk about that. And here's a package of tampons and this is what you do with it, and that's the only conversation you ever have. That kind of approach to the mother-daughter relationship around menstruation and sexuality, I feel, is one of the places that needs a lot of attention and healing. And so I'm curious what you discovered in your journey around that. This is the first time I've had a mother-daughter, besides my own mom, on the podcast. And so I'm really curious what your journey has been like around that, and how you've overcome any challenges in that arena.
Well, I'll start there because this is actually kind of funny because we had a conversation not too long ago
Mhm.
about this. She, myself, and my other daughter, and so our memories were a bit different because where I thought that I had opened up the door a little bit to this, she's like, not really. I didn't really know what was going on. I know that she, because she was young, I didn't think that it was even time
Mm.
to talk with her about that because she was so young. So she was going into her transition, but she really only heard about it in my memory at church, when she was at church in a group setting with a bunch of women, and they were talking about your cycle, and and what to do. And the church member came to me because Bree was like, huh, what are you talking about? And so the church member came to me apologizing. She was the Sunday school teacher, and
Mm.
she came to me apologizing, saying, I'm so sorry, I'm so sorry, I didn't realize that Bree was so young. We were talking about the body and girls and how the body changed, and I had no idea that she didn't know about cycles. Now in my memory, because that was the first time, I thought that we had began, little discussions here and there. That's my memory of it because that's when the door was open. But her memories were completely different.
Mm.
I did say growing up, when I become an adult, I want to make sure that I'm more open with my children
Mhm.
than my mother was with me. Because in my household, you just didn't talk about that. You did sex ed and everything at school, and that's where you got your information. When I started my cycle, I didn't even tell my mother.
Mm.
I was just taking stuff from her cabinet until she was just like, where is everything? So it's like, okay, well, I guess I just have to. But it just felt like a taboo. It felt like something to kind of, shun. I never wanted to put sanitary napkins in the basket. I always would be like, oh, can you just pick me up something? So it was kind of like and she wasn't shunning me, don't get me wrong. That's just how I took it, that this is just not
It's
something.
private.
Yeah, it's very private. It's not, you don't really talk about it. But I didn't want that
Mhm.
for my children. So I thought that I had opened that door up a little better, I thought. But turns out that wasn't the case.
Mm.
According to her and my youngest daughter, again, I'm like, you're young, it's not time yet. But I think my youngest daughter probably went to her
Mm.
to have conversation. Did she?
I don't think so.
No, because she didn't. But my youngest daughter is very private, very
Yeah, I
private.
don't.
So you almost have to go to her and be like, "Hello." But I know for sure with Bree, she's like, "No, this is how I remember things."
Yeah, I don't think Bethany ever came to me to ask me. I don't have any memories of that.
Okay, well, I know you said that your experience was different than what I had thought it was.
Yeah, well, I don't even remember the
Yeah,
church
she said she
experience.
don't remember the church experience at all.
I have no recollection of that. Like, I mean, I heard of what like a I didn't know it was called like a cycle. Like, kids are ghetto, so they say like period, like whatever.
I don't think it's a
It's not
wrong.
a wrong, but
Yeah.
I'm just saying. But how
Mm-hmm.
kids just say anything in whatever tone, however they
Mm-hmm.
feel like it, no filter. But so every now and then, like I would hear like, oh, period, but I never like knew what it meant. And so the way that I transitioned into my cycle, like I was spotting, and so I thought that I was dying because like I literally like just walked into the bathroom and I just seen like, and I was like, I don't know what the heck this is. I'm like, are these like poop stains? Or I'm like, I didn't poop on my like.
And then
It
you
was
were
just
you were
I was
young. You
10.
Yeah, a fresh
I was
10.
yeah I was a
Yeah.
was I?
Yeah, because you had made 10 in
I
January.
know, but
And
it
then
was
this was
the
only like a couple of months later. And then you were out of school a couple of months after that.
so okay, fresh 10.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And so I'm like, oh my goodness, like are these poop stains? Like I just had like so many thoughts and I didn't know what to do. And I was just like, okay. And then the in the bathroom at the school that I was at, the lights were always dim. They never were bright and
Mm-hmm.
properly working. So I just thought maybe it was because of the lights that I'm
Mm-hmm.
looking at some dim, I don't know. And so it just like kept continuing. So then I told you, and then you were like, oh, well, if you keep continuously spotting, let me know. So then maybe about like a week or two later, I let you know. And you was like, oh, it just sounds like you started your cycle. And then I do remember like that we went to lunch like the
Mm-hmm.
next day and you talked to me like more in depth about it. But I don't feel like that I was fully
Fully
prepared.
prepared
Yeah, I didn't.
for the beginning of it. So I
Yeah,
did definitely once then, I wanted to make sure that she wasn't scared. I wanted to make sure that she understood, what was happening. I wanted to make sure she understood that her body was in a position now to have children. And so I wanted to have
yeah,
that whole conversation, and I wanted to make it a nice conversation. I didn't want it to feel like, this is what's happening to me. So we went out, we had a nice lunch or dinner, whatever it was. We sat down, it was open for you to ask questions, anything like that. And so, like I said, in my mind, I thought that there was a preparation here until I found out recently the preparation wasn't there, but the after
Mm.
effect was. And so so hopefully when she has children, it'll be different for them, where
yeah,
she'll be able to really prepare in a way that I didn't. So with each generation, I think it has gotten better because we're pretty open.
yeah. We
Yeah.
are like
What did
my
you
for
think?
me.
I'm sorry, I just had a question I wanted to jump in with. For Shelley, what kind of preparation did you think you had offered?
I thought, really honestly, again, she was very young. She was 10, but from the time my daughter was little, I was not that person who didn't talk about the body.
Mhm.
It didn't, when you're in the tub, we talk about the body. We talk about this, your body parts, blah blah blah. We talked about people touching. We talked about, so our bath time was always our time to have conversation and to sit down and to talk about things. So in my head, I think I just put that in there, that, oh, this was probably a part of our body talks and things like that, and come to find out it was not.
Because I do,
So,
I mean, my memories are faint because it was so long ago, but I
Right.
do have small memories of you like educating me about like people touching and like what are no spots and like
Hmm.
and things like that. So I mean, I can understand from your perspective why you thought that it was all together, but I didn't even know like I didn't even understand even when I was spotting, I still didn't have like full
Right. There wasn't
understanding
the
of what
concept
like
of
the
what.
cycle was.
Hmm.
Like I thought, okay, you just get it. Okay, you just get it and that's it.
Hmm.
And it's like,
And then it's
no,
just
like there's a
over.
whole, you're right, and then it's just
Yeah.
over. And then so when my body finally adjusted into an actual 5 to 7 day flow, I'm like, so I just bleed forever, like it never stops. So there, even then there still wasn't like a full understanding, like no, you got a week and then you got 3 weeks off,
and
and you
I
got a week
and
and
I
you got
think
three
some
off.
of it really had to do with youth, because and then I again afterwards, the conversation was always open. You could always come back and have a conversation. Nothing was off where it's like, oh, we can't talk about this.
Mm-hmm.
But again, what I thought was preparation or helping you with the understanding, it didn't translate. So when I say that as parents we need to be open to the fact of, yes, I thought that something was taking place, but what I thought was taking place was not there. So we need to be open to the fact of, how do our children receive stuff? How are you getting it? Are you getting it? Are you understanding? So that is where, I don't like to use the word, that is where I lacked. I gave with the best that I had at the time. And so if I had the information now at that time, I would have readjusted some things. But I gave with what I had at that time. And I left it open where she would always be able to talk, let's sit down, whatever it was.
mhm.
So which was more than I had growing up. And that was my purpose,
Beautiful.
to make things better.
Yeah, and some moms that I've talked to about this topic said that told me that, and I don't have children. This is why I'm saying, talking about other moms and not my own experience with my own daughters. That um, what they've shared with me is that often the preparation happens just naturally. That the daughter comes in the bathroom and sees the mother's blood in the toilet, or sees the mother doing what she's doing with her pads or whatever. That never happened for you. You had more of a
No, no,
private.
I've never left anything.
Uh-huh.
No, no, and no. The bathroom is my private time, and so
Gotcha.
you wait
That's
on
right.
the other side.
Right. And then there's probably there, I mean, needing that private time is a very legitimate way of having a healthy motherhood, right? Of
Mhm. Oh
really
yes,
conserving that privacy for yourself is really important for moms to have that sense of time to themselves and things like that. So
definitely.
it's very probably very quite common that scenario didn't necessarily happen for other moms. And so then how to have then that might take a little bit more deliberate preparation for very
Hmm.
young children, as young women are starting to bleed at age 10 and sometimes even
Yes,
earlier with all
yes,
of the hormonal influences in our environment right now. Some young girls are starting to bleed much earlier, and to
right.
avoid this shocking experience of thinking they're going to die, right, and not
Hmm.
knowing why they're bleeding suddenly, is to somehow um, open up that conversation, or be having a conversation in an age appropriate way early on. One of the guests
Hmm.
I had on the podcast actually wrote a children's book about that, based on, of course, her experience of her daughter coming in and seeing the blood in the toilet. Um,
Hmm.
but she made it this beautiful rhyming children's book about how beautiful the blood was, and she did a whole poetry book about menstruation and the sacredness of the blood and all of this, and with artwork and everything. So this was right up her alley to write a children's book to sort of counteract a lot of these ideas that that people have still
Mm-hmm.
in our lives, and that they might be her daughter might have been receiving from other children who may have had
Right.
different attitudes in their families about the blood being something to be ashamed of, or
Mm-hmm.
the menstrual cycle being something that was shameful or dirty, or all those other perspectives that we're wanting to grow out of,
Right.
and reconnect with the menstrual cycle as the source of our creative power, right? And our ability to regenerate life. And so she wrote this beautiful little rhyming poetry book, um, that she, for her 2 year old daughter, to start to prepare. And I really feel like a lot of the folk tales that have the young girl pricking her finger and 3 drops of blood falling into the well, or these fairy tales that have the spindle and the finger being
Mm-hmm.
pricked, and that have that, or the 3 pomegranate seeds that are eaten in the underworld, and stories of going into the underworld, the young girl going on a journey in the underworld. um, those are all preparatory stories about the energetics of the menstrual cycle that can be shared with young children before, that are age appropriate, and then they're
Mm-hmm.
familiar with that kind of a journey of going to the underworld. They're familiar with the idea of an initiation process around blood.
Definitely.
And
Definitely.
yeah, and then that conversation has a context for a young child. Well, how the character in this story pricked her finger and she
Hmm.
took
And you
three
can
drops of
just
blood.
guide
And
that.
then
Mm-hmm.
this is like that, and this is what happens to mom, with mom, every month. I go on a
Mm-hmm.
journey, and I know I'm going on that journey because I see some blood, and this will happen to you at some point, and I just want you to know that you'll get to go on this journey as well someday. And that can be, those kinds of stories, I feel, were originally um, told in order to initiate us as youngsters into these ideas. And they're beautiful maps for self growth, self perception, self awareness, and spiritual growth and emotional wisdom. These stories have, those journeys of growth are mapped out for us in a lot of these folk tales. So I just wanted to say a few words about that. I'm curious, did you ever have favorite stories or folk tales with your daughters that had any of those kinds of messages?
No,
Oh.
no, not at all.
All
I
my books are
Yeah,
educational.
that's yeah,
I don't
yeah.
like about Black history and stuff like
Yeah.
that.
We were pretty educational
uh,
on this end, Elmo books.
Yeah.
uh,
So I was very much into the educational side, the reading, and the self-awareness, understanding who you are, understanding who God has created you to be, a very biblical, background and foundation. So that's pretty much
Those
where
are all
we
our books.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
yeah, and so a
So
lot
many
of,
Black history books.
Yeah, you got to know the culture.
you know, yeah, and it's interesting because I imagine if we dig deeper into those traditions, I know that there has been some research done about cultures that do celebrate the menstrual cycle,
Yes, there are.
and there are some remnants of um, menstrual celebration and womb reverence in various tribal cultures and indigenous
Mm-hmm.
cultures,
Mm-hmm.
and that haven't been, and as you can see by the with the Christian church, a lot of that has been removed from culture. And part of the womb centered healing process, I feel, is important, is to regain that ancestral lineage for all of us, and reestablish that awareness of the importance of the menstrual cycle in understanding who we are, and understand and coming into our full power again, and reclaiming that life regenerative power.
Well, I think at the end of the day, and I can't speak on what was removed from a Christian side or not, because I've never looked at it in that sense at all. But I believe at the end of the day, I think we need to, as you pointed out, that we need to take the negative, away from it.
That stigma.
There, yeah, take that stigma away. I don't even know really why we've even placed a stigma on a natural transition of the body. So I don't even understand why we've even ever placed it on it to begin with. You know, life is centered in this.
Around the
The
menstruation. Yeah.
life is centered around the menstrual cycle. Life, being, creating, so all of those things. And so I like the fact I even have seen where some companies even make packages now, of your first cycle and things they put into the boxes, things to help prepare you, little things for moms to talk to their daughter about. I think it's opening up a
Mm.
little bit more.
Mhm.
And when I say a little bit more,
Yeah, a little.
like that. But I think with conversations like this and with podcasts like yours, we'll be able to give a better understanding.
Mhm.
It does not have to be, and it should not be a negative thing.
Mm.
This is you growing. This is you becoming.
Mm.
This is part of what's making you into this beautiful woman.
Mhm. Yeah.
And there is, I think, a wonderful celebration around you being able to transition and grow into another phase of your life.
Yeah, I mean, you were very intentional about like not about me not feeling bad about it. But
Hmm.
because of like how young I was, you were like, now you did talk to me about privacy, not because, and you made it very clear not to feel shameful, but because I was the only girl in my class, like who 9 out of 10 times had it. And
Hmm.
so not knowing, kids can be mean and they can be
Hmm.
cruel, and
Hmm.
then not knowing how to deal with that if people are spreading stuff about you. So that was the only thing that you talked to me about, like, other people's bodies in your class are not, they haven't transitioned to this part yet. But when you go to sixth grade and you go to middle school, oh, you're gonna have, so there's gonna be so many more girls who, and I'm like, really? Because I'm the only one. And
Yeah, she
you're
felt
like,
really isolated,
yeah,
and so for me, I was concerned as a parent, again, not for you to feel shameful about it, but because other girls hadn't started their cycle yet. And then, boys are immature, and I didn't want something to fall out of your bag. I didn't want so I was
right.
very intentional about, speaking to teachers and not questioning her, when she has to go to the
Because
bathroom,
I
or
had to go a lot,
yeah,
like
she had
it's
to
my
go to,
transit. I don't
and
know
she
what's too
didn't
much, but
know,
yeah,
so it was nerve-wracking for me.
Ah, uh-huh.
I was the one who's like, make sure that you keep this like this, I may have even sent some shorts. I can't,
yeah, yeah.
just in case. And so I was
Yeah.
probably more
So the
nervous.
privacy wasn't about me being ashamed about it,
Hmm.
but just because, like you said, not wanting me to be in a position to feel even more isolated than I had already
I was
felt.
so
But you
scared she
were,
was gonna be
but
embarrassed, or
yeah,
and I'm just like, oh my
but you're
gosh.
like, when you go, when you go to middle school, when you go to, everybody's gonna have it,
Yeah.
and you guys are probably even gonna talk about it all the time, and it's gonna be so normal and it's gonna be so free. And she was right.
Yeah, I just
Everybody in
wanted it
sixth
to be normalized,
Everybody in sixth grade had it. We all was talking about it. And I'm like, guys, I started my period. Does anybody have any mite? Like, so, and we were just so open with each
Yeah.
other because we all were experiencing it, which was such a huge relief,
Mm.
because, and it was such a 180 difference in my feeling of isolation from
Hmm.
when I was in elementary school. So
Mhm. And what a blessing to have your mom to support you through that early starting phase where, it sounds like, Shelley, you were really trying to care for her in a loving way, and not, and which is a fine line of not shaming her, not
Hmm.
having the shame come from you, but the care that you're probably very aware that the shaming could come from other people, and
Right.
wanting to protect your daughter from that. What fierce mothering, I just want to acknowledge. you for that.
Thank
And it gives me a sigh of relief to hear that kind of a story. I hear so many stories about this aspect of the mother-daughter relationship that's so disappointing and heartbreaking, and this is really a hopeful and nourishing story to hear, so I really appreciate that.
Oh,
Yeah,
And
and I
thank
think for me,
you.
like what I'll take away from it is, if I have a daughter in the future, like to maybe talk to them explicitly, more explicitly than what you did to me
Yeah.
at an earlier age.
Yeah, I like,
Because yeah,
books and things, I
yeah,
think that I
yeah,
really do. If I could go back and do it over again, I think I would have, books. I thought that, hey, we have our body books and things like that. We talk in the tub and like that. But I really think that I would have books that start at 2. Hey, this is
yeah,
what's going to happen to your body. So now it's more
yeah.
normalized. And as you become 6, 8,
And because
10,
you're gonna know it
you're
at
going to
7.
know,
Yeah, you're gonna
you're going
know
to
it
know,
backwards and
and
forwards.
this is what's going to end up happening. So I think,
Because it starts
having
young.
it
The
starts so
cycle starts so
young
young,
now.
9,
And
10.
I just kept thinking, I think I was just in a la la land of like, oh no, not yet.
well, when did you
But
start?
You
also
know,
you were a teenager,
yeah,
right?
because
When
I was a
yeah,
teenager when I
Yeah.
started my cycle. So I for sure never thought, I think in my head I was going to start preparing her, like fully preparing, maybe like around 11,
Mhm.
11 and a half. I'm thinking maybe like 12,
Mhm.
13,
Yeah.
you'll start your cycle. But like I said, I thought that I had been doing small things
Yeah.
along the way.
Mhm.
And so, so for her, really, it was a shock. My youngest girl was so small and petite, and I had been told before that sometimes when you're a smaller person that you don't start your cycle as early. I have been, so that was not the truth.
Mhm.
So I thought I had time with her too. So on both instances, that was not, that was not the case.
Yeah.
And so, like I said, my youngest is very, very private. She's very, to herself. So it's me like having to go to her versus her, coming a lot. And in all honesty, she would really have to be the one to tell me how that all went down, because I really don't have.
I want her to tell me
Yeah,
too,
because
because I
I
don't.
just really don't have
But
like what happened.
my recollection is that I didn't even know that she had started her cycle until maybe like she was already in it for about a good 3-4 months.
So I mean, well,
That's my
we
memory.
were definitely,
I know.
conversing about, yeah.
Yeah, that's what when you're like she. I'm like I don't remember
So
her telling me
no,
because I
because
don't.
and I know that I with her, she's to herself, but I know I spent a little more time like in the bathroom with her,
Yeah.
versus Bree. I don't really think I spent a lot of time with Bree in the bathroom, but my youngest, I spent time, in the bathroom or this or that. So, but I'm gonna have to ask her, what
Well,
happened?
oh my goodness. So I have so many more questions, but I'm just noticing that the time has flown by
Oh,
with this conversation.
yes,
And this
wow.
happens when we get into this kind of topics. The time can just fly on by because these these stories have been needing to be told and needing to be shared because of so many generations of suppression. And so it's such a relief, I feel, to be able to sit in a with even just one other woman, but with two other women, and share these stories, especially around this journey, mother-daughter journey, and how do we support our daughters in this transition. And I would love to hear more. And so I would love to invite you both to come back for a part 2 episode if you're available to do that, because I have more
Yes.
questions about the next part of this, because there's the period starting, right? The menstruation. And then there's the development of the fully fertile sexual young woman, right?
Yeah.
And that's a
Mm,
whole nother
that's a
topic.
whole nother.
And we haven't even gotten into that
I
one
don't want to
yet.
talk
So
about
if
that.
you're willing to share about that, because the mom, it has a lot to offer a young woman coming into that, right? And then how is that received and all of that? There's lots of questions to ask about that. So if you're willing to come and share, and if you did want to bring your other daughter on, I don't know if she'd be willing to share on the
She'd
podcast.
never
No.
come.
Okay, maybe not.
Not
But
even if you brought
Not
her with
even.
her favorite ice cream,
Mm-mm.
she'd
She'd
be
be like,
like,
mm-mm.
okay, well, maybe not, but maybe you'll find out more for within your own family of that curiosity for yourself. And maybe this conversation has sparked an interest in letting these stories come out more into the open. So I thank you so much for coming on the show. If folks want to
Thank
get in
you.
touch with you about your work and your wonderful service, that it sounds like both of you participate in supporting others to have a healthier relationship or develop a healthier mother-daughter relationship. And so I'm sure there might be some listeners who are curious to get in touch with you about that. Can you share how they might do so?
Well, together we have an Instagram, and our Instagram is Shelly and Brie. And so you can always connect with us on Instagram. As for myself, I have a website, shellymeche'tte.com, just my name, SHELLEYMECHETTE. And on there, any of the ladies, I have on there an ebook that you can download for free. And it's the 5 daily happiness habits. Because again, before we can even begin to have that relationship with other people, we need to be able to figure out the relationship with self. And so that ebook helps start that with 5 daily things you can do to begin to understand self. So those are the best ways to be able to connect with me, through my website and on our Instagram together.
Lovely. Excellent. So thank you so much once again, both of you, for joining us. And listeners also know that if you want to learn more about what is on offer at the Womb Centered Healing Temple, you can go to wombcenteredhealing.com, sign up for the newsletter, and you can receive a free womb listening meditation, which is a great way to connect with your own inner voice of wisdom from the womb. So, there's that. And thanks once again. That's all for now. Until next time.